She was known for her silence, not the awkward kind that made rooms uncomfortable, but a silence that felt deliberate, almost dignified. People assumed she was calm, strong, and unbothered. They mistook her quietness for peace. No one suspected that her silence was not empty. It was crowded. Her name was Zoya. Zoya learned silence early in life. As a child, she discovered that speaking did not always lead to being heard. When she cried, she was told to be patient. When she asked questions, she was told not to think too much. When she expressed fear, she was reminded that others had it worse. Slowly, words lost their usefulness. Silence, on the other hand, kept her safe. As she grew older, silence became her language. It protected her from disappointment and judgment. It allowed her to observe without being exposed. People spoke freely around her because they believed she wouldn't repeat their words. They trusted her, not knowing that every confession, every careless remark, settled deep inside her like another locked door. Zoya carried many secrets, but the heaviest ones were her own. She was the woman who listened when others needed comfort. Friends called her strong. Family called her reliable. At work, she was praised for her composure. No one asked how she managed to remain so composed. No one noticed how often she stared out of windows, how she lingered in empty rooms long after everyone had left. Inside her, there was a constant hum of unspoken thoughts. Zoya had loved once, deeply and quietly. She loved in the way silent people do, fully, without demands, without drama. She gave space, understanding, and patience. When that love ended, it didn't end loudly. There were no arguments, no accusations, just absence. A slow withdrawal of attention, a gradual realization that she was alone even when someone was beside her. She never told anyone how much that hurt. Instead, she smiled when asked how she was. She said she was fine. Over time, even she began to believe it, or at least she learned how to live as if it were true. Psychology calls this emotional suppression, but for Zoya, it was survival. Feeling too much had never been rewarded. Silence had. Years passed. Life continued. Responsibilities replaced desires. Routine replaced hope. Zoya's days became predictable, and predictability felt safer than possibility. Yet at night, when the world quieted, her thoughts grew louder. She replayed conversations she never had. She imagined explaining herself to people who never asked. She wondered who she might have been if she had spoken sooner, louder, or more honestly. The secrets she carried were not dramatic. There were no crimes, no scandals. Her secrets were subtle and heavy. Unfulfilled dreams, unanswered questions, love that was never returned in the same measure. These are the kinds of secrets that don't shock others, but slowly reshape the self. Zoya knew how to disappear emotionally while remaining physically present. At gatherings, she laughed at the right moments. She nodded in agreement. She asked polite questions. But she never revealed the ache beneath her calm exterior. Vulnerability felt dangerous. Psychologically, Zoya had learned to associate intimacy with loss. Every time she grew close, something slipped away. So she stopped reaching. She told herself she was independent, self-sufficient, complete. Society praised her for it, reinforcing the belief that needing less made her stronger. But strength without connection is a lonely thing. There were moments when her silence felt like a betrayal to herself. Times when she wanted to scream, to confess, to be seen without having to explain. Yet the words remained trapped. Silence had become automatic, almost involuntary. One evening, after a particularly long day, Zoya sat alone in her apartment. The lights were dim. The city outside was alive with noise and movement. She felt strangely separate from it all, as if life were happening somewhere else. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to acknowledge the weight she carried. She realized that her silence had protected others, more than it had protected her. It had kept people comfortable while she absorbed discomfort. It had preserved harmony while erasing parts of her own voice. This realization did not bring immediate relief, but it brought clarity. And clarity can be painful. Zoya began to write. She wrote about the moments she stayed quiet when she should have spoken. She wrote about the love she never asked for and the help she never requested. She wrote about the fear of being too much and the exhaustion of being too little. The words surprised her. They were raw, unfiltered, and alive. On paper, she was not calm or composed. She was human. Writing didn't solve everything, but it cracked something open. It reminded her that silence was a choice she had made once to survive, not a rule she had to follow forever. Still, change came slowly. Zoya did not suddenly become outspoken or bold. Her transformation was subtle. She began by answering honestly when someone asked how she was. She allowed pauses in conversations instead of filling them with politeness. She declined invitations she didn't want to accept, and accepted ones she genuinely did. These small acts felt radical. The secrets didn't disappear, but they loosened their grip. Some secrets, she realized, were not meant to be revealed to others. They were meant to be acknowledged internally. Silence is not always harmful. Sometimes it is sacred. The damage comes when silence replaces truth entirely. Zoya remained a quiet woman. But her silence changed. It was no longer a shield built from fear. It became a space she chose, not one she hid behind. People still saw her as calm, but now there was depth in her presence, a groundedness that came from knowing herself, not from avoiding herself. She didn't need to tell her whole story to be real. She only needed to stop hiding it from herself. Her many secrets no longer defined her. They became part of her history, not her prison. And in that quiet transformation, Zoya discovered something she had never allowed herself to believe before: that silence can coexist with truth, and that being unseen by the world does not mean being lost to oneself. If you ever feel unheard or unseen, remember that your story matters, even if you're the only one who knows it. If you need support, please reach out to mental health professionals.